Welcome in to the Fourth Verticals Podcast, episode 101. Here from a high top, well, at the time of recording this, a somewhat sticky Jacksonville, Florida. Um, Disclaimer here, this is episode 101. This is not a live stream, as you can already tell on YouTube and on Spotify. Probably won't even notice, but this is not a live stream. This is not live on YouTube. There's also no pre-show, so you may be wondering yourself, as I move the fan over here. So if you guys can't tell, this is again not a live stream. This is just a recording, and there's no pre-show or anything. So because of the schedule at the time of I'm releasing this on next Thursday, I will not be able to do a traditional show live. So we are doing a pre-recorded stream, and I just recorded the 100th episode special. Much like the last time we did this, this is going to be a evergreen show. So these are going to be questions, mostly Q&A. There is going to be a team record projection, Penn State, as you can tell by the title. So we are doing that. This is going to be sort of like a normal episode, but it's mostly going to be Q&A after the Penn State record projection. So again, if you're wondering what's going on, that's what's going on. Of course, we'll be back eventually the following week, which will be after this. When I'm releasing this, will be Thursday, June 5th, I believe. So and of course, I'm recording this before we get storms here in Jacksonville, which are going to be happening today. As per usual around this time of the year. So in lieu of you guys having to deal with thunder in the background, there's that. But a couple things here before we get started on the show. As per usual, much like a live show, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for Verticals Podcast and our Spotify channel, same name. Nothing happens. I don't make you guys sign up for a form. I don't put you guys. This isn't behind the paywall or anything. This isn't on a Patreon page or anything. This is all free. This is all for you guys to, watch and listen to for free. All this content's for free for you guys. I would never do that. Put this behind a paywall or anything. So just make sure you do that. Subscribe, like the videos. In this case, the video or the streams when we do them, and make sure you also follow us on Spotify and on Twitter. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm requiring of you for this show. As I fix my computer here and get the notes ready to go. Yeah. So here we go. Let's get into this. So we've been doing this record projection for the past couple of weeks. The last one we just did was from Miami. Touched on that a little bit on the last show. But I wanted to get in, do Penn State now. So we went from the ACC. Before that was the SEC. Now we're going to the Big Ten again. Penn State. Just to double check here. Make sure we haven't done Penn State yet. I don't believe we have. I don't think we have. Let me just double check here, make sure. If not, we're going to have to restart this whole thing. I don't think we have. No. The only other Big Ten schools we've done is actually the Washington and USC, I believe. So we haven't even done the other ones yet. So this is good. So Penn State last year, and to make it to the college, well, we talk a lot of Penn State on here. That's why I got a little bit confused. But Penn State makes it to college football playoff, expanded, right? So it makes sense that they go 10-2 like they have the past couple of years, which is really good. Of course, when James Franklin got there, it was such a mess, right? The Sandusky stuff, and it was coming off of the Bill O'Brien stuff, and when he didn't do anything, it was off of those years where he couldn't do anything. I believe Brian's first season, they lost like Ohio or something like that, like the Bobcats from the MAC. So coming off of that, you bring in James Franklin from Vanderbilt, which I still believe he deserves a statue for what he did at Vanderbilt. It's Vanderbilt, right? Like the only time they've been ranked in the top 25, or at least up until this past year, and having to back-to-back 9-win seasons, that will never happen again. Next time that happens, I will be in the cemetery, and that's pretty rare for Vanderbilt to be that good, at least to that extent. And of course, I'm running nothing against the current staff there right now. Of course, General Manager Barton Simmons, but what James Franklin did at Vanderbilt. He deserves a statue there. I'm surprised I haven't done it yet. Penn State, what he's done there, absolutely incredible. Yes, there's been some bad years, a COVID year, 2020 and 2021. Yes, it's scary where the program was headed, but that wasn't the program. That was just two bad seasons. Well, at least one of them was a pass because it was a weird year. 2021, sort of, the throwaway year. Every single coach has at least one of them. If they haven't used it yet, they eventually will. So with the expanded playoff coming in, I think a lot of folks, including me and Josh Payton, these other shows I listen to, and I'm sure you listen to too, So the thinking was of Penn State, given their stature the past, over James Franklin's entire track record, that they would have been in the playoff every single year they went 10-2. Like, for example, like 2016, 2017, all these years they went 10-2. If the panel playoff expanded to 12 teams, they would have easily been in. There's no doubt in my mind. But here they come, then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh no, James Franklin has to, win the national championship awards. It's a bad season. Like, all of a sudden now we're raising the bar to a team, or to at least a program, that has mostly been 10-2 and is just now getting thrusted into the playoff for the first time. I've talked about Penn State a whole lot in the show, like I just mentioned, and I talked about James Franklin. I agree with Josh Pape that James Franklin is the most accurately placed, rated coach. He's a good coach. He's not a horrible coach. He's not some crapper coach. He's not elite either. I think some of you are starting to agree with me. You know who you are. Some of you still disagree, which is fine. You can agree to disagree, but I think Penn State over the past couple of years has been the example of stability. They've been the model of stability, especially in the Big Ten. There's not a lot of movement. Sure, you have assistant coaches leave, but it's not because the program's trash. It's just they're just getting opportunities, right? You want to move up in the world, and that's what happened to Tom Allen, and that's what happened to Manny Diaz the year before. Of course, they bring in Jim Knowles this year. They bring back Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen are back. Receivers, we'll see. That's a bit of a question mark. I get that. Also defensively, you lose Abdul Carter. That's another concern as well. But this schedule for Penn State, and their win total, by the way, from FanDuel, not a sponsor of the show. You've never been a sponsor of the show. Their over win total is 10.5, which is quite good, and that's fits with their current trajectory, I guess. So go for the schedule. They have Indiana on CBS. I know that makes no sense, much like the past couple of years, like UNLV and Michigan. And then last year with Ohio State, Akron, just doesn't make any sense. Like, why would CBS waste time putting these games on their network? But I get it. It's you get inventory in there, and it's the money. So that is why you're having these G5 teams being featured on CBS, when in other years they would not be, but whatever. So that's your first game. If in Nevada, it's on CBS, and you have your G5, and then you have your local regional FCS, which is actually Villanova. How about that? At least it's not basketball, or I guess it wouldn't matter because they're not good in basketball right now. No the basketball for the show for today, but then you get your big game, your big home game this year. It's Oregon. Thankfully, I didn't realize this when I did the show earlier, when I was discussing the schedule, and I was mainly discussing week 1, so I guess it's understandable why I missed this. But the biggest fear for Penn State this year was that they're a whiteout game, because it's, you're in Pennsylvania and Oregon's traveling to you, and the thinking has been, oh no, it's going to be the Fox game. It's a big noon. They're going to big noon it. That's the new term now. It's just, missed opportunity for a big game. And my thinking was exactly the same. This was definitely going to be a big nooner. They're going to put it on that stupid noon window game. It was going to be another whiteout that was going to be at noon again, and much like the Ohio State game last year and years past. Well, that's not the case. Fox did not get this game, and I don't know who else is playing on this date. I think it's actually, I have no idea. I've been looking at the schedules. I don't know who is playing on that same weekend. I have no clue. I'll have to look on later after the show recording, but you guys got the the primetime game on NBC. So unless there was some backdoor deal with Fox to get this game on NBC, kudos for Fox here to be the bigger man and give the fans like me what we want, which is a big primetime game, actually, at night, showcasing top two teams, which should be undefeated by now, I'd imagine. If Oregon doesn't lose to Oregon State and Oklahoma State, they should be fine. Both these teams should be undefeated. Both of them should be in the top 5. Could be 1 versus 2 again. So how about that? Another game of the century. But the problem is, though, while it is a primetime game, it's on NBC. The problem is, though, and I do agree with guys like Josh Pape, who have also voiced this concern, is that while yes, NBC doing the primetime games, that's fine. They also do the Sunday Night Football for NFL. The problem is, though, the presentation for NBC, and it's been the problem too with Notre Dame. It's just like their NFL presentation. It's like the issue Fox had with BCS, where it's like it may as well just be the Fox NFL people. It's literally just, it was the same personalities, but it was it wasn't different from the Fox that you would see on the NFL than it was for the BCS bowl games or even other regular season games. It was just kind of the same thing, just with college teams. And presentation wasn't very good, and that's the problem with NBC and Peacock is that it's got that NFL flair to it, and it doesn't showcase the Fox or doesn't showcase what the atmosphere is. For anyone who's new to college football, or just I guess in the words of Josh Pitt, a casual, that's my fear for this game. While yes, it's going to be a spectacle with Oregon coming into the whiteout, will NBC learn their lesson from last year and actually show you the whiteout and actually give you the experience? Because those, not the case last year. There's a lot of times where you watching those games on Peacock or NBC, you're like, this feels like an NFL broadcast. It's like very cookie cutter, very industrial. Again, hopefully they change it. Again, nothing against Noah Eagle and Todd Black, which you, by the way, if you for some reason have never not realized this, yes, he has left ESPN, ABC. He's been at NBC for a couple years now. Nothing against those guys; those are good. But it's just the presentation last year for NBC wanted to be a little bit better. Hopefully, they learned their lesson. But this is a big deal for NBC and those folks over there to actually get a big game and a big marquee game from Fox. So I don't know if there's some backdoor deal where Fox could let them buy a game. I don't know, because I do know that I bet you those folks over at Fox, the executives over there, really wanted this game. They really wanted it. I guarantee you the original idea was to have this on Big Noon, but it's not. So unless I'm missing something, unless there's another big game here that I'm totally missing on, which maybe I am, that maybe it's another Ohio State game, I guess. But hey, good for Penn State for getting out of it. And I guess this is kind of a very rare big game. And again, I like I said on the previous show, the way this works, I'm pretty sure this is how it has to work. There cannot be Big Noon games on the West Coast. They just can't. You cannot have a game at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think they did that, by the way, for COVID, and it went horribly. So if you're a West Coast team like Oregon, unfortunately, or fortunately for you, you can get the big primetime games late on NBC at home. And unfortunately for Penn State and these teams out west, or out east of the Rockies, it's harder for you to get those late games because a lot of your games want to have to be on Fox, right? Because it's you're in the central or eastern time zone. And it's easier for Fox to do it, have an actual big new kickoff versus having to, attempt to do it in the West Coast, which you can't do that. So the thing is that for these teams out to the east of the Rockies, where you couldn't have those primetime games usually, because again, Fox would usually scoop up the big game, and it'll be either CBS or NBC would get the leftovers. So thankfully for Penn State and Oregon, it looks like, based on Wikipedia here, that this is the whiteout game. So it sure looks like this will be a whiteout game on NBC, and it'll be a primetime game. I'm assuming this is the case, and this is not some bonehead on Wikipedia being a dick and fooling me into this. So I'm assuming this isn't the whiteout. This has been rumored for a long time, but regardless, that's your big game. That's your Super Bowl if you're James Franklin. If you're especially if you're one of those, I guarantee this is going to happen too when the game happens. I was just turning to a big James Franklin segment. I trust you. We'll move on from this. We'll actually break down the schedule. I guarantee you this, when this game happens and the casuals from the NFL folks start rolling in on Saturday before their precious NFL comes on. Look, I'm an NFL fan too. I'm a Bucs fan. If you didn't know. I guarantee you, when those folks start rolling and be like, oh, James Franklin, better win the big one. Better win the freaking big one. You don't know, the comedian. Oh. I guarantee that's going to happen. You're going to have a lot of folks complaining about James Franklin. They lose his game and saying, oh, he needs to be fired and all this, and he may as well just be sent to Gimbo. I trust you, that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. With the expanded playoff going forward, even with the format changing, losing one game is going to get you fired. And I guarantee you, if James Franklin somehow loses the game, and we'll eventually do my predictions for this game when it's appropriate, when it gets closer. That's not going to happen. And unfortunately, that's going to be the talking point, is James Franklin the big one, James Franklin the big game, which is going to be annoying, which you're going to hear it a lot. And trust me, when we get to that game, when it gets closer, it's going to definitely going to piss me off and piss off a lot of other folks too. I'm not even a Penn State fan. I support them. I support James Franklin. I'm not a Penn State fan. I didn't go there. I don't live in Pennsylvania, even though I'd want to go there. So that's the big game early on. That's your big home game. After that, I believe it's you go out to UCLA. That's your West Coast game. I think you do get Northwestern. You get Iowa on the road. Those three. You should be better than those teams. You should be favored in that. That Iowa game being before Ohio State. sneaky, but luckily there's a bye week in between, looks like, so you should be okay. Then comes a big game, Ohio State on the road. I'm imagining you'd be a dog in that game. But besides that, there's really no other big challenges. Now, Indiana's in there, Rutgers, well, not really, but I guess Nebraska too. But it's besides those two big games, the big game, James, that's kind of it. Like those two games, Oregon, Ohio State, if you can at least split one of those games, that's your season. Like that is your season for Penn State. So enough talking about, me defending James Franklin. FanDuel number 10.5. They're not sponsored the show. It'd be cool if they were. But unfortunately, living in Florida, that can't happen. So FanDuel number 10.5. That's just the site I use to get the numbers. I'm not forcing you guys to do anything with FanDuel. That's up to you. Best case scenario for Penn State, 10-2. There's nothing else to say. 10-2. Worst case scenario, 9-3. Now this is where it gets weird. So you count in, I guess, the Oregon and Ohio State game. There's potential, in Iowa, potentially maybe a an Iowa, Indiana, Nebraska, Michigan State. That's a rivalry game too. Aiden Childs and Jonathan Smith, they were just hanging out there. And yes, I know Aiden Childs had a very much, i.e. Jameis Winston type year with 30 touchdowns and 19 picks. It's, as Tom Fornelli on Cover 3 calls it the whoopsie daisy king of the year, and that king of the past years has been Anthony Colandrea. Now it's Aiden Childs. All of a sudden, Aiden Childs has been infected by it, and hopefully he doesn't. He's gotten rid of it. But that's a fun team to watch this year, and that could be a dangerous team. It's late in the year, kind of get a little to sleep, especially if you've won one of those two big games. But that could be a trouble area, but. At least as a fan, I'm not a coach. I don't have to bear those responsibilities. I don't have to, bear those possibilities of having to deal with that. And so for Penn State, that could be a potential trouble spot there. But my thinking here, with everything they have coming back, and this being a very important year for James Franklin and them to at least potentially win a national championship, I think 11-1 is on the table here. It's pretty ballsy. I do believe they do split one of those two games. I'm guessing I'm leaning towards the Oregon game, but again, we'll see. This is just a projection, not a full-on prediction or anything, but I guess it kind of is. But I think the best case scenario for them is 10-2. Worst case 9-3. I think the best case or reasonable is 11-1, based on again what they have coming back, their schedule. They definitely have that Oregon game circled. It's their first trip to Happy Valley. These two teams played each other last year in the Big Ten title game. It was a close game. A lot of folks forget that. That was a very competitive game. I give a lot of credit to Penn State for being competitive with them. And I think their most reasonable outcome here is 11-1, which is actually better than the best case scenario. But again, that's just me taking the, what do I think is reasonable to think here? And I think 11-1 is not crazy here. So sounds insane to think that a most reasonable outcome is better than the best case. But it's my show. I can do what I want. So. In terms of record projections. So yeah, Penn State record projection, again, 10-2 best case, worst case 9-3, which is good for most teams not named Penn State, at least in a lot of ways. Like for example, Auburn would love to have a 9-3 type season. Don't worry, we'll get to them. The most reasonable is 11-1. Again, it sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm, a James Franklin fanboy, but look, I agree with Josh Pate. He's the most popularly rated coach. He's also the most misunderstood coach as well in college football. So that's my opinion. A lot of folks will agree with that. We can agree to disagree. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to get some water here. Of course, we just did a show a few minutes ago at the time of recording this. And if you're listening to this, you're on Spotify and YouTube, it doesn't matter. But still, it just kind of gives you a branch, or at least not a branch. Why did I just say that? It gives you a gauge as to where this is being recorded. Again, it's not live or anything. This was recorded on, May 29th. So when this comes out, it'll be June. So as we do with these evergreen shows, and that's it for the Penn State record projection, we usually do a long Q&A. We have a lot of questions here, so we'll probably be here for a little bit. Probably not going to be an hour-long show, so there's that. But yeah, we have a lot of good questions. This will certainly take a long time, so we'll get through these. First question here: will UGA, Texas rematch each other in the SEC championship game again, much like last year? So if you don't remember, these two teams played each other last year as a somewhat competitive I mean, it makes it sound like Texas is some terrible team, but it was a close enough game. Georgia pulled away a little bit, kind of sort of flexing their muscles. Then they play each other again, and they circle around. They play each other again in Atlanta. Georgia wins that game in overtime. It's an instant classic, and probably an all-time favorite SEC championship game. That could happen again easily. It could, right? These two play each other again. It's both every single team in the SEC. It's the same conference schedule, just the venues change. If you played someone on the road last year, they're at home this year. So UGA gets, to their benefit, they get Texas, Bama, and Ole Miss at home this year versus having to go to their place. And I think a lot of folks in Athens will love that because they have not had a lot of big games, at least in the old Eastern divisions. They didn't have a lot of big games, and thankfully now, with no divisions, the sort of thinking is now is that you can have a lot of big games at home now. Just depends on how the schedule goes. So they get Texas at home this year. If things work out, they could easily play each other again. Absolutely, they could. Now, there's some obstacles to this, right? There's other teams out there, Bama, LSU, Tennessee, Florida. Could be in there as well. Up South Carolina, even. Just don't forget about them. Lamar Sellers. So there's a path there to definitely see them come play each other again in Atlanta. But it's not a guarantee. It's definitely a lot lower. Like if this was divisions, absolutely, this could definitely happen. But it's not very likely, again, given the fact there's so many other good teams. Like Bama will eventually do. I think LSU, we've done already on our team record projections, I believe. Should probably keep an eye on this. Yeah, we've done Texas and the SEC. We've done Oklahoma. I believe we've done A&M. We've done LSU. We'll eventually do Bama. But my thinking is there will be other teams other than Texas that may make it, right? Your LSUs of the world, your Bamas of the world, your, Oklahoma even, potentially, Texas A&M. So there's a lot of other teams now since no more divisions. But, yeah, a rematch could happen, certainly. But I think it is more likely it would be either – one of these two teams facing a different team, a different rematch, I guess, because it could be Bama, Georgia again, or it could be Georgia versus LSU, and there's so many different combinations, right? So it's an infinite amount of possibilities. So yes, it's possible. It's not likely, but it could happen. Next question here: what do you think of the reports of changes being made to James Gunn's Superman? So Joshua with Dan Nerds, and at the time of recording this, much like the previous show we just did, because we're recording this the same day. He's still live. He's back from New York, and he's live a little bit earlier than I thought he was going to. I thought he was going to be on tomorrow, but I guess he's doing a special edition show, a live stream. But so he's on right now, and he's talking about this right now, along with the Fantastic Four stuff. There was a screening at the time of recording this last night. This would be 28th. But he's also talking about Superman, which he's been very vocal about on Twitter, because there's been a lot of reports about, hey, there's been some changes being made. Which some of it makes sense. As they did. I think one of the things mentioned the music is they brought in a second composer. There's also, and they've recently brought in the marketing guy from Disney to come in and polish up some stuff. And look, I haven't watched Josh's stream yet, so he'll divulge what he's heard. I'll listen to it later at the time of recording this. But look, I still have my reservations about Superman. There's a lot of things I don't like about it, like the super shit rumors and just the way, with James Gunn's style. Look, I don't hate James Gunn. He's not from the program or anything, but I like his style, but I also don't like it. I still think Guardians 2 I don't like. I'm in the minority in that, but I'm just not a fan of it. I'm actually more or less in line with Christian Harloff, who I followed for a long time, going back to the Collider days. Now he's independent. I agree with him a lot. That just it felt too much like a sitcom, and I don't want Superman to be a sitcom. I don't want it to be too funny. It could be funny, right? The footage of him going to the Fortress of Solitude and the robots and stuff like that. Yeah, that felt like Guardians. It was not too much like Guardians. That was fine. I'm also in the minority with the dog criticism of Crypto. That's fine. It looks fine to me. Yes, it's not a lab, but a lot of our folks have more problem with it than I do. But whatever. But my main concern of this is the comedy. I just don't want it to be a freaking comedy. I don't want it to be like Guardians 2, where it's just like, oh, like just like a constant, fart jokes and weird crap like that. I really hope it's not like that. I really hope it's more in line with Guardians 1, where it is more serious but also funny at the same time. If that's the case, then I'm cool. And look, I think who was it? David Cornsweet, the new Superman, looks fine. Sounds like he's going to do a good job. Though I do think his interview with Lois, who I forget the actress's name, is it Rachel or something? That scene, while it's grown on me a little bit, I still don't like the fact that Superman's too angry. He's like, yelling as that clip sort of plays throughout the last trailer they put out. So that's kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Yeah, was it the chick doing the selfie? It's just like, that's stuff I could do without. That's a little bit cringy. But look, we'll see. Look, I'm going to give this a chance. Do you think that, there's a topic later. I have a suspicion that this will be a big financial win for Warner Brothers, which is weird to say because given what we were hearing about, there's a lot of rumors about this being very big for the studio's future, but now they've had, Minecraft and Sinners and potentially Superman. It's kind of strange, Warner Brothers sort of turned it around here mid-season. Looked like they were dead in the water. Now they're sort of trending up a little bit. Could be a pretty good year for them. So I'm cautious about the changes they're making. Again, I haven't watched Josh's stream yet, Den of Nerds, but I will watch his stream later, and I will. Who knows? Maybe we may come back on the next show, and maybe I'm different. Maybe I am more optimistic about Superman. So we'll see. But it doesn't seem all the changes are that major from what I've heard. Again, the second composer coming in, that's not really new news. The hiring the Disney guy from Marvel, the marketing guy, not a surprise either. That's been reported. So yeah, again, the Superman changes we'll see. And again, if those of you are new here, we talk a lot about college football. We also do talk about Star Wars and Marvel, and also being a Buccaneers fan. I guess while we're in the middle of questions here, yeah, that's what the show is. And if you're a fan of any, if that's your flavor, if your flavor is one or the other, then tune in. There's a lot for you here if you're a fan of any of these things we're talking about. Let's see here. Next question here, another Superman or superhero related question. Yes, this has been a hot button topic, if you will. Sort of been a contentious topic. Let me fix my notes here just to make sure all of this is correct here. Yeah, so we all know that Doomsday's been delayed, right? It was supposed to come out this time next year, and now it's coming out in December. So they've had to move some things around. So we know that the original X-Men are coming back, right? A lot of them were announced publicly, and some of them have yet to be announced publicly. There's still a lot of mystery as to who is in fact returning and who is not returning. And I did a question about this several weeks ago, and I figured now we're doing a big Q&A episode, may as well just bring it back again. But it's a little bit more different. It's more of an update as to what is the what are we hearing here? What's the outlook here for other? Because there's a lot of the cast members for the OG X-Men, like your James Marsden, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Alan Cumming. I forget the chick who plays Mystique, but yeah, so they're all back. They've been confirmed. And of course, you have Gambit from Deadpool and Wolverine. So they're all coming back. But the thing is, there's a lot of names missing, right? You have Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Anna Paquin as Rogue, Halle Berry as Storm. So a lot of names missing, and I think a lot of folks, up to including me, are wondering, well, are those names, or is there more names to be announced? Because I've been hearing a lot of conflicting things. There's the set photos is the first one that got me wondering, is this actually just the X-Men roster, right? Is this all we're getting? And the set photos come out, and it's obviously the X Mansion, but every you see those statues, and I think a lot of folks were pointing out the statues on the set were possibly fallen X-Men who have passed away, which got a lot of folks thinking, hey, since not all of the original team is back, at least were announced initially, is that the sort of in-universe reasoning as to why a lot of those actors and actresses aren't come back? That a lot of them have, since passed away. That's my partially stuff I've heard, and also my theory is that if that is the case, and all of the X-Men original cast members are coming back, that maybe this is a weakened X-Men, universe where that team has since been depleted, or a lot of them have died off, which makes them vulnerable for Doctor Doom, because obviously he will eventually come there and attack them. And the theory is that maybe he's bringing in, or at least the idea is that RDJ's Doctor Doom is teaming up with the current Avengers on 616 and the Fantastic Four, because he's going to make himself, or at least sort of present himself like an Iron Man variant, like an alternate universe Tony Stark, which that's the gig, right? And there's also rumors about alternate versions of like Captain America and Black Widow, so evil versions of them that will portray themselves as just, oh, we're just variants, it's okay, no big deal. So that's the thinking, right? They're going to attack the X-Men, and sort of my theory is that the reason why you have not gotten the cast yet, the full cast of the original team, is that that's a depleted X-Men team. At least that's my theory. So, and again, that's in a universe reason or potential reason. Now, the reason behind the scenes wise is just the scheduling stuff, right? A lot of these actors may not may not want to come back. Halle Berry. I know from what I've heard, because I watched a lot of Eric Voss's videos. He did a big breakdown for the X-Men films last year before Deadpool and Wolverine. So we're going to go over the history stuff and the behind the scenes issues that were going on with like the director. I forget the guy's name. It's Brian, the guy who did Superman Returns. Yeah, Bryan Singer, and the issues he was having with the cast members, and apparently it was pretty bad, and he was tied into all of this sexual assault stuff. So yeah, the behind the scenes stuff of the X-Men movies back in the day, the OG ones, the ones he directed, and not counting the third one, which was Last Stand, but the first two, Days of Future Past, apparently it was not very seamless. It was a very intense behind the scenes stuff, and that's why someone like Halle Berry would not return, because probably behind the scenes stuff that happened, maybe just bad experiences and whatnot. Now, for Hugh Jackman, that one's a little bit easier to explain, because I do believe there's a good chance he could be in the movie, but there's also a chance that they could just save him for Secret Wars, right? Him and Deadpool, because at the end of that movie, they're together with X-23 and all the other Deadpool characters. Now, of course, we see Gambit leave, and that's a whole other conversation, right? Does that mean is that where Gambit left? He just randomly went to that universe and all that. He's with the OG X-Men, I guess, where he always probably should have been. But so the Hugh Jackman thing, Ryan Reynolds, I guess, is in there too. Like, that makes sense. If you're saving them for Secret Wars, if you're going to do what people think they're going to do, which is like the, multiverse Avengers, right, with the other versions of Spider-Man and some of these other characters, that makes sense. But the other big name is the Anna Paquin Rogue, and that I've touched on this a little bit, and the reason why I brought this up, or for two reasons, is I asked this actually on a little Q&A thing that this new scooper, James McCall, I don't know the guy's last name. Apologize, but we'll just call him James. He's on Twitter. He's this new sort of recent scooper that's come out of the woodworks. Apparently, he used to be on Twitter and his account got deleted for leaking stuff. But so I asked him, he was doing a little Q&A. He's like, hey, ask me questions. I'll answer ones I can't answer. So I asked him, hey, I'm assuming that not all the OG X-Men are coming back, such as, Halle Berry, Paquin. Is that true? And he says not. Then I asked him, hey, can you give me some clarification? Is that not as in my thinking is wrong, or is it not they're not coming back? And I'm guessing that's my thinking is wrong. They are coming back, which, okay, sure. Look, if Halle Berry comes back, fine. If Hugh Jackman's also in the movie as well, they're just not revealing that yet, whatever. But the reason why I've been pretty staunch about a lot of these actors that come back, particularly Anna Paquin, is it's not that I don't want them to come back. I do. That'd be nice, right? Because, Rogue and Gambit, and in the comics, and I believe in X-Men, the animated series in '97, they're together, right? And that's a thing. But given, I know it's hard to talk about personal stuff here, which is why this has been I've been trying to avoid talking about this. But after doing some research when the casting was announced initially, I was like, well, where's all the other, what's going on with the other people who are not been announced yet? And it turns out, apparently Anna Paquin has some health issues. And again, this is personal stuff, so it's like, there's not a lot of information. Apparently she's not doing too well. So there's been a little bit of, at least me in my head, going, yeah, I can see why she wouldn't come back. It's probably not reasonable for her to be doing the physical stuff, like acting and stuff, while she's apparently having to use like a cane to walk or whatever. It's like supposedly not certainly, she's not doing too well. But again, that's been 2 years ago, and it's been kind of silent. So who knows? Maybe it's gotten better. Again, that's talking about personal stuff here. I'm not a freaking doctor or anything, but that's part of the reason why I just been assuming like she's not coming back. And I think a lot of folks would want her to come back, right? Because, Rogue is a big part of the team, and she was a big part of those original movies. So, and of course, not to mention she was cut out of Days of Future Past, and she was brought in via the director's cut that was eventually released publicly. But so I don't know. I'm getting mixed messages here. Either this one I'm thinking is true is not true, or they're not coming back. So I'm assuming my thinking is wrong here, and that they are coming back. So if that is true, then my thinking is wrong here. So I'm assuming it'll be revealed that they're coming. They're going to be announced at Comic-Con, and it'll just reveal the rest of the cast, or they're being saved from the movie, or whatever. I guess it's still a mystery, but at least we're getting some answers. But James, if you will, has not responded yet, because I asked, politely saying, so not coming back or not. So not as in not coming back, or what I'm assuming is not true. Just looking for clarification here. Thanks. That's not no response yet, which is understandable. But turns out, at least I don't know if I'm missing this somehow or whatever. I'm just not connecting this, with my brain. But I guess from other people who have responded to my tweet, they have said not as in my thinking is wrong. So I don't. Who knows? But yeah. So that's my reasoning for them not coming back. Again, look, I'd want them to come back. Right? It'll be so cool to have Storm and Rogue be there with the rest of the team. But given the experiences and at least of when filming the original movies, and given that Pac-Man has health issues, that's why I'm assuming they're not coming back. Now, as for the other ones not announced, it does seem like Famke Janssen coming back as a Phoenix, Jean Grey. I think that is probably going to happen. I think that's more likely of the three other members who have not been announced. I know some of the other ones like Colossus and who was it, Pyro, who was in Deadpool, Wolverine, and Iceman. Look, who knows? Like, they're lesser known characters, and they could come back, could not. But we'll see. Yeah, that's my update on that. But again, we've already discussed this. We'll see come the San Diego Comic-Con if that is true or not. But according to Mr. James here on Twitter, that I'm assuming that my thinking is wrong, that they are going to come back. So, okay. I'm going to some water here. I'm even going for a while here, but voice is starting to go out. This is what happens when you do 2 shows in a row here. The voice had a tendency to go out a little bit, but we're doing okay here. All right, voice is holding strong here. Next question: if the NFL and college swapped announcing crews, like I guess an individual crews, which NFL announcing team would you like to see call games? This is a very interesting question. I'm getting this sort of inspired from Cover 3 because they did a Q&A earlier with Tom and Chip. I believe Danny was on there as well. I haven't watched it yet, but I think I briefly went on there and they're on there. How would this go down? Who would I want? Depends on the network. If it's CBS, Kevin Harlan and his crew, that's a good crew. Ian Eagle was up there as well. Jim Nance also would be fine. I'm assuming if we're doing the current TV deals, this would mainly be for. Excuse me, I burped there again. This would mainly be for. I would assume for the Big Ten, right? Because of the TV deals, this would have to be the Big Ten with Fox and CBS. So, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to have Kevin Harlan and that NFL crew calling a game in the Big Ten. That'd be nice. For Fox, this is different. Not exactly an actual crew, but just people I'd like to have. Like, Kevin Burkhardt's pretty good. Him and Tom Brady, unpopular opinion. I think Tom's actually quite good. At least he's gotten better, or at least he got better throughout the season. I will kind of admit he was a little bit not the best at the beginning, but as the season went along, he got a lot better. Kevin Kugler, and I believe Daryl Johnson. I believe when that crew was around, I believe it's different now, but those two are pretty good. Big Daryl Johnson fan. I like his analysis. Pretty good. Mark Schlereth is another one I do like. If we're going the ESPN route, yeah, I guess Joe Buck and Troy calling an SEC game, well, as weird as it would be. Sure. Now, I will say with Troy, and I don't have a problem with Troy personally, but not the biggest fan of him being really critical, that'll be my concern, I guess, of him being like ultra critical of college kids, and he's like that in the NFL. So, yeah, that'd be kind of cool they did that. I believe the NBA, ESPN did that with their NBA and college shows. Like Jay Billis he's with the NBA now, their NBA coverage, but back in the day when it was separate, when he wasn't on there yet, you'd do the swap, right? You had to have him pop in for one game, and then it'll be like Mike Breen, I believe the others would call a game, I believe. I'm not mistaken. They've done it before. It's been a while. I don't remember. I don't watch a lot of college basketball or NBA. Mostly college basketball more than NBA, but I do watch when it's important. But yeah, it'd be kind of cool if they did that. I don't know if they would do that, but yeah, that's an interesting question there from this anonymous user who typed these in. Next question: what went wrong with the Gary Anderson era at Wisconsin? So this has been something that's always been fascinating with me. So this is back circa 2014, so it would have been 10 years ago from last year. So Gary Anderson was at Utah State, a lot of success. I believe he was the coach who almost beat Auburn the year after Auburn won the national championship. So in the year after. So that was with, I believe, the Keaton kid at quarterback. They come into Jordan here, and they literally could have been Auburn that day. It was a very high-scoring game, very entertaining game, but a very concerning if you're an Auburn fan back in the day. But So Gary Anderson leaves Utah State, goes to Wisconsin after Barry Alvarez, or was after Barry Alvarez had retired. It was a long time ago, but in between him coming in and Barry Alvarez retiring in the 2000s, it was Brett Bielema. And of course, Bielema leaves to go to Arkansas for a number of years. And I get some success there, but towards the end at Wisconsin or at Arkansas, when Bielema went to Arkansas, not Nebraska or Wisconsin. When he went to Arkansas, Bielema did. It fell apart a little bit towards the end, but he got off to a decent enough start, albeit he was taking over a horrible situation. But yeah, so in between, the Paul Chryst era and Brett Bielema, there was the Gary Anderson era. He comes into Wisconsin. He, tries to change the identity of Wisconsin, because Wisconsin traditionally has been, power running, meat and potatoes, running backs, fullbacks, quarterbacks, just, our game managers. That's been the case ever since Barry Alvarez was coach there. And look, Barry Alvarez is a very respectful head coach. He was the AD, and he's actually popped in multiple times. That's part of the story here, because he does plan here and just within the timeline of the story. So Gary Anderson comes in 2013. I believe they go, 9? Look, I have his wiki page put up here so I can look at the schedule or the records. So 9-3 his first year, and then he went 10-2 his I believe his second year, or 9-3, I believe, in total. But or I think they went 10-2. Yeah, he didn't coach the bowl game, but first year was fine. But he did sort of try to change the offense, right? He's sort of revolutionizing the offense, sort of what Luke Fickell is doing now, or at least he tried to do with Phil Longo. It didn't work, and it didn't work here with Gary Anderson, because the year after they go 10-2. That's the Melvin Gordon team. They go make it all the way to the SEC, Big Ten championship game against Ohio State. If you remember, it's the 12 gauge game. 12 gauge being Cardale Jones, not the weapon. I'm not trying to insinuate anything, but so Cardale is the quarterback, because they've had injuries there. Comes in, lights up Wisconsin. Immediately after, Gary Anderson essentially gets fired. Supposedly it's resigning, but he basically got fired. The reason why, a couple of reasons. Now, what was said publicly and what's been revealed publicly is that Anderson claims it was, him wanting to, take his family back to the West Coast. Technically, he went to Oregon State after, and it didn't work out necessarily. So he cited a family rationale for taking his family to Oregon State and to that region of the country. But then it gets reported by a number of outlets, and I do remember this back in the day, that he was supposedly frustrated with Wisconsin's high administration standards for athletes. So, standards for them getting in. In my opinion, that's BS. And I think the real reason why he got fired, and this is something that I think Bud Elliott has talked about on Curve 3, when this has been brought up, when Wisconsin coaching changes have been brought up. He brought this up a couple years ago when Chris got fired, that, and the thinking behind the scenes in the industry, and put this 2 and 2, that Barry Alvarez was not happy with the way Anderson had changed Wisconsin so much. The thinking is, and the rumor of theory or whatever, is that what really happened was that Alvarez got so frustrated with Anderson, changing over the offense, going away from what he wanted, because he was the athletic director, and he didn't like that. So he told him, go kick rocks or resign, or we'll just up and fire you if you want to make this less ugly. Anderson apparently decided to resign, go to Oregon State. Because you go from Wisconsin to Oregon State, that's a downgrade. So that's initially when I was a kid, because I was still in middle school back then when this happened. Even as a young middle schooler, I was like, man, this is weird. Why would you go from Wisconsin to Oregon State? Wouldn't it be the opposite? But turns out he basically got fired. There's no doubt he got fired, and it's all because the Barry Alvarez mafia thing, and him wanting again Wisconsin to be a certain thing as long as he was there. And of course, there he comes as their interim coach for Wisconsin versus Auburn in the Outback Bowl, and they win that bowl game. And of course, they hire Paul Chryst, a yes man for him, and the rest is sort of history, I guess. But Gary Anderson basically got fired. There's no doubt that he did get fired, and they did not want him to be the coach there anymore. I think there was a sense of, well, yes, the record may seem great. They were not fans of the offense. Barry Alvarez very much so wanted a traditional Wisconsin offense. He did not want this, at least in his mind, a stupid spread crap, anything like that. And Gary Anderson basically said, well, fine, if you want to leave, I'll go. So he left, and he basically unofficially got fired. Even though it was supposedly he resigned, he did not. He got fired. At least not publicly, but I know it's not really public knowledge that this probably did happen, but I totally believe this did happen. And I think the fact that a lot of folks, particularly people like Bud Elliott, would openly talk about this leads me to believe this more than likely did happen. Like a version of this story probably did happen. He got fired unofficially. The administration didn't like him. And which sucks too because they were actually not a. It wasn't bad, but just it was just not a good fit. And yeah, and his time at Oregon State, by the way, too, was horrible. It was like he only got 7 wins, so there's that. Next question here as we merrily move along. Sort of goes back to my question I had earlier about Superman. A little bit of the answer I had. Will Fantastic Four flop like Thunderbolts did, even if it's a good movie? So, as I talked about, still have reservations, or at least in the past show we just did, which was released on May 29th. This will be coming out in June. Like I said, the past show, I still have concerns about Fantastic Four. Yes, I do think there is a potential this film could flop, even if it's actually good. I've said this before, and I say this again. I said this on a couple of shows ago. The fact that Marvel, and now we have new information that they're doing a fan screening that's public, which is, again, not a good sign. That's traditionally a sign they're not confident enough that they want fans to go see it. They may be getting internal numbers that's not tracking well. A lot of this like behind the scenes stuff is maybe boring to you, but this is why me and Josh over at Den of Nerds feel this way. That the fact that they are making public screenings available, the fact that they are getting a little bit nervous, that they are seeing the numbers and they haven't not been released yet, but the fact that this is happening leads me to believe that they are not happy. That they did see Thunderbolts flop, and even though it's a good movie, it's losing them money. Yes, I know a lot of pundits aren't talking about it. They're not using the flop word. It's going to be a box office bomb. There's no doubt in my mind. It's not making nearly enough money as even Brave New World. Even that's what was considered a flop well before it even got to that point. But yeah, I think Marvel's panicking here. I think this movie, even though it could be a good movie, which I have my reservations on it, because given the Fantastic Four's history and how it is a cursed franchise, and like I said in the last show, yeah, it could flop. It could very easily flop, and I'm very worried about it, and I think this is not a good sign. So, yeah, it could easily flop, and even though it could be a good movie, I don't think it's going to be tracking very well. I could be wrong, but we'll see. Next question here. I live outside the box here. Question. Thoughts on liminal space? If you don't know what liminal space is, if you don't know the idea of it, I could stay here for hours talking about it. So what liminal space is, what liminality means is just transition, right? It's you may have heard it before, like we were talking about eras, right? Like, for example, like from World War II to the Cold War, that's a liminal transition, right? The time before the Soviets and the United States and the West were going against the Soviet Union, Russia. So that was a transitional period at time between WW2 and that era. But in the world of liminal space and photography, and I guess in real life, liminal space is basically the idea of it originally was the back rooms, which have since been found. It was like a hobby store in Wisconsin or something like that. But the original idea of the liminal space came from the original backrooms photo. It was the photo of like the fluorescent lights and like the beige walls, and looked like it's just there's no furniture, no humans. And that's the whole idea of liminal space, is that all it is just a photo of something that should have people in it. Like you can go look at movie theaters, children's daycares. I don't know why I brought that up, but that's a very common place in liminal space. Malls, bedroom, school, college campus, like places like that should have humans, don't have humans. And that does create some sort of like a weird feeling of both, I guess in some cases, like if you're using, I guess, like a school or like a daycare, maybe most of you were youths back in the day. Probably do remember going to those, and I sure do with limited memory. But seeing a daycare that is, I guess, I don't know, abandoned, like a preschool or something like that, where it's like there's no students there, but it's just the photo of no one there, it does sort of create some uneasiness, a little bit of that and nostalgia and things like that. It's a very weird feeling. It's a very odd experience, and there's a lot of videos about liminal spaces you can find on the web, and it's a very weird rabbit hole to go down, especially on Reddit. Who doesn't go on Reddit, or whom doesn't, I guess, if you're using that vocabulary. But yeah, liminal space, very weird, and it's around you all the time, right? Because for example, like me, because I'm in my room recording this show, my point of view makes it sound like makes it look like there's no one in the room with me, even though I am in here. It does have that sort of liminal space quality to it, but yeah, it's a weird thing to go down. I could do really a whole show about it, but I don't have the time for that here. We have limited time here. It's now 3:00 now. Got 2 more questions here. So second to last question. If you were to get a sponsor on this show, who would it be? Easy question, or easy answer here. as someone who is over the age of 21, been so for a couple years, I have tried different beer products. Now, if you're over 21, this may interest you. If you're not, then this may or may not interest you. But of course, legally, make sure if you want to drink, make sure you're the legal age. That's important disclaimer here. But if I were to ever have a sponsor for this show, with someone who's again if you were to go down, I guess if we go down the whole, which type of liquor do I prefer, actual liquor or beer? Definitely more of a beer fan. Do supplement that with running as well. Guys, most of you don't know, in high school I did do track and cross country in the fall. So I'm a runner, retired for a couple of years, decided to get back to it recently. So that's sort of combat the issues that can come with drinking beer, which is the weight gain stuff. But if you exercise regularly, it evens it out a little bit. You should be okay. But in terms of the beer I do like, Yingling is a favorite beer of mine. Also, besides them, Dos Equis, Guinness. So any one of those companies, I think preferably Yingling, as they are American beer, oldest beer in America, actually the oldest brewery in America. Their birthday's in a couple of years too, actually, 100th anniversary. But so if they were to approach me as being a sponsor, which I am open to, now I'm not going to turn this show into a massive, I'm not going to necessarily bring in a whole bunch of brands in, but if I had to choose one to start out with, it'd be Yingling. I would happily be sponsored by them. And look, if you're listening to this, or if I put out the call on Twitter, handshake emoji here, I would be willing to work with you guys. Whoever that would work, whether it's you guys send me free beer or whatever, like coupons or whatever. Hey, I'll power to you. But look, I would much prefer them to be my sponsor because it's a company I trust, and they're a pretty good company. They make good beer. And though I will say it is interesting because since Yingling is a little bit harder to find west of the Mississippi River, it's very popular here, like in Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, especially Pennsylvania up north, because that's where the distillery is, or not distillery, the brewery is. It's in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, not far away from State College, actually, not far from Penn State. But yeah, if that was a sponsor, I'd like it. I understand that it's not the most popular beer, but it is America's oldest brewery, and it'd be pretty cool to have that be a sponsor of the show. But we're not that big yet. Hopefully in the future they will reach out to us at some point, but who knows? Last question here, and then we'll get out of here. Long show again. That's another 50-minute show. Could all the major teams in Florida make a bowl game this year? So think the teams in the major conference. So UCF, Florida, Florida State, Miami. Maybe possible. So UF probably could, as long as DJ Lagway stays healthy. UCF, we'll see. Miami, yes. Florida State. So there's a path there, but unfortunately, probably not. It's a bold take, I'll say. This was Josh Pate's bold. Was it a bold prediction? This would be pretty bold, right? Because you have to have all those teams win, right? Win at least 6 games. So it's not impossible, but it's certainly pretty hard. It's not the easiest thing to imagine because, again, given Florida State's situation and UCF, their roster's not necessarily the best, though Florida State's roster should be a lot better, but whatever. Yeah, it's possible, but it's not likely. If I were to do this on a scale 1 to 10, I guess Josh Pate style, give it a 8, maybe 8.5, 8.7. So it's pretty bold, but it's not that bold. But yeah, that's it for the show. Today, again, it's pre-recorded. So if you're still confused, yes, this was recorded a week before it comes out. So that's why there's no show there was no show Tuesday. So we will be back eventually. I'll let you guys know what the schedule is going forward. There might be some changes coming up with potentially me getting a job. So I'll let you guys know, but we should be still doing shows after this week as of Thursday. When will this be? June. I don't know. I guess it'll be June 5th or whatever. We'll still be doing shows. I'll just assume about 2 shows a week. But I'll let you guys know what the changes are. But we'll be back to the two shows per week, I'd imagine. Unless something changes, I'll let you guys know. But until next time, until we meet again, enjoy the rest of your week. Take care of yourselves. I know at the time of recording this, I'm saying that for you guys in the future. By the time of recording this, hurricane season just around the corner in a couple days. The first day meteorological summer. As you guys know, I live in Florida. At the time of recording this, and this could be different when this comes out, there's no tropical systems currently as of May 29th, but in the future, in a week or so, there may be some tropical mischief in the Gulf. We'll see. There is some possibilities out there, but nothing too strong probably. It may just be a big rainmaker. We'll see. But here in Florida, as of right now, the drought situation as of May 29th is not the best. So there's that. So anyway, until next time, enjoy the weekend. Take care, and we'll see you guys on the next show. Take care.